Hello? It's so lovely to be sharing simple discoveries for a happy and active life with you again. Have you ever noticed, my dears, how subtly, like an uninvited guest, words sneak into our thoughts, dimming our inner spark? These phrases, like drops of water eroding a stone, day by day chip away at our confidence, our self-esteem, especially when we have a wealth of life experience behind us, say, after 65. Why does this happen? Often it's because, without realizing it, we start to believe in imposed stereotypes about age, or perhaps a habit of self-criticism developed over years takes its toll. Words like, "I'm too old for this," or "who needs me now?" act like tiny pests, nibbling at the roots of our spiritual garden, making us feel less significant, less capable. But I'm here to tell you, this isn't a life sentence. We can replace these weeds with beautiful flowers of confidence and joy. You'll be surprised how your outlook on life changes when you consciously start talking to yourself differently. And this doesn't require Herculean efforts, just a little attention to your thoughts and a desire to live life to the fullest. Stay with me, and together we'll dissect these insidious phrases and learn how to neutralize them. The age trap. I'm too old for this, and at my age, it's too late. So, the first and perhaps most common trap is the phrase "I'm too old for this," or its variation. At my age, it's too late, inappropriate, impossible. Think about how often you catch yourself thinking this when a new opportunity arises, whether it's learning to use a computer, traveling to a new place, or even just wanting to learn to dance. This thought, like a heavy anchor, pulls us down, preventing us from spreading our wings. Let's replace it with, "My age is my experience, and I can try anything that interests me." Or, "It's never too late for new discoveries." Let me tell you the story of Margaret. She's 72. All her life, she had dreamed of painting with watercolors, but there were always reasons to postpone it. First the children, then work, then grandchildren. And when she finally had the time, the thought began to plague her. What's the point for me now? My hands tremble. My eyesight isn't what it used to be. I'll just waste the paints. She would see beautiful art sets in stores, and her heart would flutter with a quiet desire. But then her inner critic would whisper, "Don't make people laugh, Margaret. You're not a young girl anymore." It was as if she had put up an invisible barrier on her own path to joy. She felt as though her best years, when she could have created and experimented, were irretrievably gone, leaving only regret. One day, her granddaughter, knowing about her long-held dream, gave her a small set of watercolors and a sketchbook. Margaret initially refused, saying it was a waste of money, but her granddaughter was insistent. "Grandma, just try it, for yourself, for your soul." And Margaret, not wanting to offend her granddaughter, decided to give it a go. Her first strokes were hesitant, the paints bled, and her hand did tremble a bit. She felt clumsy, like a first grader. But then, stroke by stroke, she began to enjoy the process itself. She forgot about the result, about what it should look like. She simply mixed colors, watched them spread on the paper. It was akin to meditation. A month later, she was eagerly awaiting the evening to sit down with her sketchbook again. Her works, simple at first, became more and more interesting. She even found an online group for beginner artists her age, where she shared her progress and received support. So, what happened? Margaret, by overcoming her inner barrier, discovered not only a new hobby, but also a new source of joy and self-esteem. It turns out our brain is capable of learning and creating new neural connections at any age. This is called neuroplasticity. And creativity stimulates the production of dopamine, the pleasure hormone. She felt a surge of energy, her mood improved, and even her hand became steadier because she was training it. Her fear was like an old, rusty lock on the door to an unknown room, and the brush and paints became the key that, albeit with a creak, opened that door to a world of new sensations. So, if there's even a spark of desire in your soul to do something, don't extinguish it with thoughts about age. Fan that flame. Remember, age is not a limitation, but a treasure trove of experience. The wall before the new. I won't be able to master this, and my memory isn't what it used to be. The next pair of phrases that often go hand in hand are, "I won't be able to master this," or "I'm too stupid for this," and, of course, "My memory isn't what it used to be. I forget everything." How often, when faced with something new, like a new phone or the need to pay bills online, Do we give up beforehand, convincing ourselves of our own inability? These thoughts, like a fog, obscure our capabilities, making even simple tasks seem insurmountable. I suggest replacing them with, my brain loves new challenges. It just needs a little time and patience, or I learn at my own pace, and every small step is already a victory. Meet Arthur. He's 78. After his old push-button phone finally broke, his children gave him a modern smartphone. Arthur looked at it as if it were some alien artifact. "Why do I need this devil machine?" he grumbled. "I'll never figure out what to press where. My fingers are too thick, the letters are too small, and my memory isn't what it used to be to remember all these icons." He felt completely helpless, and even a little humiliated that such a seemingly simple thing was baffling him. It seemed to him that his brain, like an old dusty mechanism, was no longer capable of absorbing new information. He even started avoiding conversations about the phone so as not to look foolish. His son, Michael, showed incredible patience. He didn't scold his father, didn't rush him. He sat down next to him and, as if with a child, slowly and step by step began to explain. "This, Dad, is to make a call, and if you press here, you'll see photos of your grandchildren." Arthur initially huffed, waved his hand, saying it was all too complicated. But Michael, every day, a little at a time, with a smile and support, showed him one or two functions. He wrote down the basic steps in large letters on a piece of paper. Arthur, seeing his son's patience and his faith in him, slowly began to try. At first, he confused icons, accidentally called the wrong people, but gradually, very slowly, things started to improve. And so, a couple of months later, Arthur could not only make calls on his own, without prompts, but also send messages, find necessary information on the internet, and, most importantly for him, he learned to use video calls. When he first saw the laughing face of his granddaughter, who lived in another city on the screen, his eyes sparkled with joy. He felt not just like an old man left behind by life, but like a modern grandfather keeping up with the times. He realized that his brain wasn't a petrified stone, but rather a muscle that could and should be trained. Yes, it required effort, like any training, but the result was worth it. Successfully mastering the smartphone incredibly boosted his self-esteem. He became more confident, talkative, and even started joking about himself, recalling his first clumsy steps. So, my dears, don't be afraid of new things. Our brain is wonderfully plastic. When we learn, we literally build new pathways in it. Yes, it might take longer than in youth, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Be patient with yourself, as you would with a beloved student. And remember, every little thing mastered is a reason for pride, a burden to others. I'm a burden, and I don't want to bother anyone. Ah, these phrases. I'm just a burden to my children's loved ones, or I don't want to bother anyone with my problems or requests. How much hidden pain and desire to be needed is in them, yet at the same time, a fear of becoming burdensome. It's a feeling as if you've turned into a heavy suitcase without a handle, awkward to carry, but a pity to abandon. It quietly gnaws from within, causing you to withdraw and refuse help, even when it's necessary. Let's change this tune to, my life and my experience are valuable. I have much to offer my loved ones, and asking for help is normal. It's a sign of trust and closeness, not weakness. I want to tell you about Eleanor. She's 80. After her husband passed away, she was left alone in a large house. Her children, already adults with their own families, lived separately. Eleanor had always been a very independent and proud woman, and now, being alone, she increasingly caught herself thinking that she was becoming a burden to them. If she needed to move something heavy or go to the doctor, she would try her best to manage on her own, just so as not to bother her children. They have their own lives, their own worries. Why should I trouble them? She thought. It seemed to her that her requests would be perceived as senile frailty, as an additional load. She started calling less often to not impose, declined invitations to family dinners, citing fatigue. A feeling of loneliness and uselessness grew inside her, like a weed in an abandoned garden. Her daughter, Sarah, noticed that her mother had become somewhat distant and sad. She started visiting her more often, just to chat, to bring groceries. One day, she found Eleanor trying to move a heavy chest of drawers by herself. "Mom, what are you doing? Why didn't you call me?" exclaimed Sarah. Eleanor was embarrassed. "Oh, I didn't want to bother you. You're working." And then Sarah sat down beside her and said, "Mom, please understand, it's not a burden for us to help you. On the contrary, we feel needed when we can do something for you. You're our mother. We love you. Your requests aren't a burden. They're an opportunity for us to show we care." Eleanor listened to her daughter, and tears rolled down her cheeks. They were tears of relief. After that conversation, something changed. Eleanor began to ask for help little by little, cautiously at first, then more confidently. And she saw that her children were genuinely happy to help. She started visiting them more often, playing with her grandchildren, sharing her memories and recipes. It turned out that her experience, her stories, her mere presence were very valuable to the family. She once again felt not like a burden, but an important part of a large and loving clan. Her self-esteem, which had suffered so much from thoughts of her own uselessness, began to recover. She realized that being needed is not only about giving, but also about accepting help and care with gratitude. It's like a dance, where both partners are important. My dears, remember that your family, your loved ones, love you. Allow them to care for you, just as you once cared for them. This doesn't make you weak. It makes your relationships warmer and stronger. Your life is a gift, not a burden. Looking to the past. My best days are behind me, and it used to be better. Another common thought that can overshadow the present is, my best days are already behind me, or its twin sister, the grass used to be greener and people kinder. When we constantly compare the present with an idealized past, we unwittingly devalue what we have now. It's like sitting at a table laden with delicious dishes, but constantly reminiscing about a particular pie from childhood that no longer exists. And because of this, you can't enjoy the current feast. Let's replace these thoughts with, every stage of life is beautiful in its own way, and I still have many interesting days ahead. Or, I value my experience and look to the future with curiosity, finding joy in the present moment. Listen to the story of Samuel. He was 69 when he retired after a long and successful career as an engineer. For the first few months, he enjoyed his freedom, but then he was increasingly visited by thoughts like, back then, I was someone, I was respected, I solved complex problems. And now, emptiness. He could talk for hours about his past achievements, projects, business trips, but there was always a note of sadness in his voice. It seemed to him that all the brightest and most significant things had already happened, and only a quiet, unremarkable old age lay ahead. His self-esteem, which used to be fueled by professional success, began to decline. He felt like an old ship, decommissioned and beached, while the sea of life still churned around him. His wife, Emily, seeing his despondency, suggested he try volunteering. Samuel initially brushed it off. "What can I teach them? I'm not a teacher." But Emily gently insisted that he at least visit the local library, where they were looking for helpers for a Reading for Children program. Reluctantly, Samuel agreed. On the first day, he felt terribly awkward. The children were noisy, and he didn't know how to get their attention. But then, he started reading them fairy tales, the same ones he once read to his own children. And a miracle happened. The children quieted down, their eyes lit up with curiosity. Samuel, unexpectedly, got carried away. He started creating different voices for the characters, asking questions, discussing what they read. A few months later, Samuel became the star of the library program. The children adored him. He discovered that his engineering mindset helped him structure stories, and his life experience helped him find deep meaning even in simple tales. He felt needed, in demand, but in a completely new capacity. He realized that life doesn't end with retirement. It simply offers new roles. His best days weren't in the past. They had just become different. His self-esteem blossomed. He stopped living in memories and started looking forward to every library day. He realized that life isn't a mountain you descend after reaching the summit, but rather a garden that blooms differently in different seasons, and every flower is beautiful. Therefore, my dears, don't let the past cast a shadow on your present. Yes, there were wonderful moments, but today and tomorrow can be equally remarkable days if you open your heart to them. Seek new sources of joy and meaning, and you'll be surprised how many there are around you. The feeling of invisibility. No one listens to me, and my opinion doesn't interest anyone. No one listens to me anyway, or my opinion doesn't interest anyone anymore. What new can I say? Sound familiar? These thoughts often come when it seems the world around has become too fast, that young people speak a different language, and your rich life experience seems to have been devalued. It's a feeling like you've become invisible and unheard, like a quiet whisper against loud music. It hurts deeply and makes you fall silent, even when you have something to say. Let's try to replace these attitudes with, my wisdom and my experience are unique and valuable. I have the right to be heard, or I share my opinion with respect, and it enriches the dialogue. Let me tell you about Grace. She's 75. She was always the life of the party, a wonderful storyteller. But in recent years, she noticed that at family gatherings, she was increasingly interrupted, and her grandchildren, engrossed in their phones, seemed to pay no attention to her stories. It began to seem to her that her words no longer carried weight, that her stories about the past were just old age rambling. She started to join conversations less and less, withdrew, and this made her feel even more lonely and unneeded. Her self-esteem suffered. She felt like an old book on a shelf that no one had opened for a long time. It seemed to her that her voice had become so quiet that it simply couldn't be heard above the general hum. Her eldest grandson, James, loved his grandmother very much and noticed this change. One day, when the whole family was gathered, and Grace, as usual, was sitting silently in a corner, James said loudly, "Grandma, tell us about how you went to the Virgin Lands in your youth. You used to tell it so interestingly." Grace was initially embarrassed, waved him off, but James insisted, and she began to speak, quietly and hesitantly at first, but then, seeing the genuine interest in her grandson's eyes, and then in the eyes of other family members who had put aside their tasks and phones, her voice grew stronger. She spoke of hardships, of friendship, of a youth full of hope. And that evening, she was once again the center of attention, not as an object of condescension, but as the keeper of family history, as a wise person who had something to share. After that incident, Grace realized that her silence was partly her own choice, dictated by the fear of not being heard. She began to share her thoughts more confidently, without fear of seeming old-fashioned. She understood that her life experience was not a drawback, but a huge advantage. She could look at many situations with a depth that was inaccessible to younger people. Her advice was valued again, her stories listened to with interest. Her self-esteem, like a bird, spread its wings. She realized that her voice, like a quiet stream, could flow into the wide river of general conversation, if only she herself allowed it to sound. So, my dears, do not devalue your voice and your wisdom. Your experience is priceless. Speak, share, participate. Perhaps it is your word, your perspective, that is missing for the full picture. And remember, to be heard, you must first speak. The burden of regrets and self-criticism. I should have then, and I'm not good enough. And finally, phrases that pull us into the past, forcing us to relive mistakes and missed opportunities. Oh, I should have done it differently then, or if only I had. And alongside them, self-criticism often sounds, I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I don't deserve. These thoughts, like heavy weights tied to our legs, prevent us from moving forward and enjoying the present. They create a constant feeling of guilt and dissatisfaction with ourselves. Let's replace them with, I did the best I could at that moment, with the knowledge and resources I had. I forgive myself and move on, and I am unique and valuable, just as I am, with all my strengths and imperfections. I want to share the story of David. He's 70. All his life, he worked hard to provide for his family, and it often seemed to him that he had missed something important in raising his children, that he hadn't given them enough time. Now that his children were grown and had their own families, David was often tormented by thoughts like, I should have spent more time with them when they were little. I was too busy with my career. These regrets overshadowed his interactions with his children and grandchildren. He felt guilty. It seemed to him that he had shortchanged them on love and attention. This self-criticism ate away at him from the inside, like rust. He compared himself to other fathers, and this comparison was always unfavorable to him. His self-esteem was very low. He considered himself a failed father. One day, at a family celebration, his daughter, Anna, noticed his depressed state. She approached him and asked what was wrong. David, struggling to find the words, shared his feelings. Anna listened attentively and then said, Dad, we never felt deprived of your love. Yes, you worked a lot, but we always knew you were doing it for us. You taught us to be hardworking and responsible. And now, you're a wonderful grandfather. Look how much your grandchildren love you." These words were a real revelation for David. He looked at his laughing grandchildren, who were pulling him to play, at his smiling daughter, and realized that his regrets might have been exaggerated. He began to consciously work on letting go of the past. He started to focus more on the present, on what kind of grandfather he could be. He read books to his grandchildren, walked with them, taught them crafts. And in these simple moments, he found immense happiness and peace. He understood that the past cannot be changed, but one can change one's attitude towards it and build one's present. He learned to forgive himself for past mistakes, realizing that at the time, he acted as he thought was right. His self-esteem began to grow when he stopped berating himself and focused on the love and joy he could give and receive now. He realized that regrets are an anchor that holds you in place, while self-forgiveness and self-love are the sails that allow you to move forward. Therefore, my dears, be kinder to yourselves. We all make mistakes. It's part of human nature. What's important is to learn from them, forgive ourselves, and move on. Focus on what you can do today to fill your life and the lives of your loved ones with warmth and joy. You are worthy of love and respect, first and foremost, from yourselves. The mirror of self-criticism. I look so bad. I'm falling apart. Good day. It's so nice to be on the same wavelength with you again. Today, I want to talk about those little things that subtly affect our well-being, and especially about how we look at ourselves in the mirror. Phrases like, "Oh, I've aged so much. I look so bad," or "My body is completely falling apart. I'm no good for anything." Sound familiar? These words, like little poisonous darts aimed at our own reflection, wound our self-esteem every time we say them or even just think them. They make us feel like we're fading, losing attractiveness and vitality, like an old photograph whose colors have faded. Let's replace them with, "My body is a journal of my life, and every wrinkle is a story. I treat it with gratitude and care, or I focus on what my body can still do, and I rejoice in every day it serves me." Meet Beatrice. She's 77. In her youth, she took great care of her appearance, prided herself on her figure and smooth skin. With age, looking at herself in the mirror, she increasingly saw not wisdom and experience, but only wrinkles, gray hair, and changes that upset her. "Who needs me like this?" she would whisper to herself. "I'm not even pleasant to look at." She started avoiding bright clothes, stopped styling her hair. It seemed to her that the less attention she drew to herself, the better. It was as if she had hidden herself in a dark closet, so no one would see the evidence of her lived years. Her self-esteem melted away like snow under the spring sun, leaving behind only puddles of sadness. One day, her granddaughter Olivia came to visit and brought a beautiful, brightly colored silk scarf. "Grandma, this is for you, try it on," she said. Beatrice initially demurred. "Oh, where would I wear something so bright? I'm not that age anymore." But Olivia gently insisted. When Beatrice tied the scarf, it surprisingly brightened her face, emphasized the sparkle in her eyes. Olivia said, "Grandma, you're so beautiful. Your wrinkles are like sunbeams by your eyes. They're from smiles. And your gray hair is like silver you've earned." She helped her grandmother choose comfortable yet elegant clothes, persuaded her to go to the hairdresser. Beatrice gradually began to change her attitude towards herself. She realized that beauty at her age isn't about smooth skin, but about inner light, grooming, dignity, and kindness in her eyes. She began to notice that when she liked herself, her mood was better, and people around her treated her more warmly. Her body wasn't an enemy, but a faithful companion that had carried her through her whole life. She started to care for it more. She began doing light exercises, watching her diet not out of fear of aging, but out of love for herself. By caring for ourselves, by accepting our age-related changes with dignity, we send a signal to our brain that we are valuable and important. This, in turn, reduces stress levels and improves overall well-being. Our appearance is just one facet of our personality, and it changes over the years, but our inner essence, our spirit, can remain young and radiant. Remember, your true beauty lies in your smile, in the warmth of your heart, in the wisdom of your eyes. Wear your age like a crown, not like a burden. Care for yourself with love, and your reflection in the mirror will smile back at you. The shadow of insignificance. What have I really done that's special in my life? Hello, friends. I'm glad to see you here, where together we seek simple and kind ways to live more easily and joyfully. Today, we'll talk about a phrase that can sneak up unnoticed and poison the joy of past years. Well, what significant thing have I really done in my life? Or my achievements are so small, nothing compared to others. This thought, like a gray fog, can envelop us, making us feel as if our life has passed somehow mundanely without bright feats or loud successes, and our self-esteem shrivels from it like a flower in the frost. Let's replace it with, every life is unique and valuable, and I have left my mark on people's hearts and in the world, even if it was through small but kind deeds, or my legacy is the love I gave, the experience I shared, and the people I influenced. Let's remember George. He was 82. He worked his whole life as an accountant in a small firm. Upon retiring, he often compared himself to his former classmates. One became a famous doctor, another a successful businessman. And what about me? George thought. Numbers, reports. Nothing heroic, nothing outstanding. My life was so ordinary, so unnoticeable. It seemed to him that he, like a small cog in a huge mechanism, had left nothing truly important behind. This feeling of his own insignificance darkened his days. He felt as if his life path was a trail in the woods that led nowhere, while others were paving wide avenues. One day, at the local senior citizens club, they organized a project called The Book of My Life, where everyone could share their memories. George initially refused, thinking he had nothing to tell, but they persuaded him. He began to remember how he helped a young neighbor with small children when her husband was on a long business trip. How for many years, he honestly and scrupulously managed the firm's affairs, thanks to which many people received their salaries on time. How he raised two wonderful children who became good people. How he was always ready to listen and support a friend. Gradually, telling these seemingly ordinary stories, George saw his life in a new light. His small deeds formed a large picture of kindness, honesty, and care. Other club members listened to him with interest and respect, recognizing their own experiences in his stories. George realized that the significance of life is not measured by grand titles or huge fortunes. It is measured by the warmth you gave, the traces of goodness you left in the souls of other people. His life was not just a trail, but a quiet, yet full-flowing river that nourished many. His self-esteem, previously so low, began to grow. He realized that his ordinary life was filled with deep meaning and quiet, but real, everyday heroism. He understood that his legacy was not monuments, but grateful hearts and fond memories. My dears, never devalue your life and your actions. Raising children, being a good friend, working honestly, offering a smile. All these things have immense value. Your life is a unique mosaic, where every piece, even the smallest, is important. Value yourself and what you have brought into this world. The specter of helplessness. I'm so afraid of getting sick and becoming a burden. A heartfelt welcome. Our conversation today will be about how to regain vitality and joy without resorting to heroic feats or strict limitations, but by starting with our thoughts. And one of the most troubling thoughts that can settle in one's mind after 65 is the fear of the future, especially the fear of illness and helplessness. What if I get seriously ill and become a burden to everyone? I'm so afraid of losing my independence and not being able to take care of myself. These thoughts, like dark clouds, can obscure the sun even on the clearest day, poisoning the present with anxiety and diminishing our faith in our own strength. Let's replace these frightening thoughts with, I am doing everything possible today to stay healthy and active for as long as possible, and I will face future challenges with courage and support, or I am preparing for different stages of life with acceptance and planning, knowing that needing help is not a weakness, but part of the human journey. Listen to the story of Helen. She's 79. After several of her friends faced serious illnesses, Helen began to panic about the future. Every morning she woke up with the thought, what if something happens to me today? This fear literally paralyzed her. She started going out less, gave up her favorite gardening activities, afraid of falling or overexerting herself. She imagined the gloomiest pictures of her frailty, and these thoughts, like annoying flies, gave her no peace. Her self-esteem plummeted because she felt vulnerable and unable to control her life. It seemed to her that she was standing on the edge of an abyss, and any misstep would send her tumbling down. Her daughter, Claire, seeing her mother's condition, suggested she not hide from her fears, but face them constructively. Together, they sat down and made a plan. Firstly, Helen underwent a full medical examination, which, to her surprise, showed that her health was generally consistent with her age and there were no terrible diagnoses. This already calmed her down a bit. Secondly, they discussed her wishes in case she needed help in the future, who would make decisions, what her care preferences were. Helen even wrote down advanced directives. Thirdly, Claire helped her mother find a wellness gymnastics group for seniors and enrolled her in healthy eating courses. Helen gradually started exercising, watching her diet, and spending more time outdoors. What happened? Helen didn't get rid of all her anxieties completely. That would be unrealistic. But she stopped being a passive victim of her fear. She took control of what she could control, her health today, and planning for the future. This gave her an immense sense of confidence and calm. The fear of the future, which had been like a huge, dark monster, shrank to the size of a manageable task. She realized that helplessness is often the result of inaction and lack of preparation. And an active stance and sensible planning are like a reliable helm in the hands of a captain guiding their ship through the sea of life, even if it sometimes storms. Her self-esteem grew because she once again felt like the master of her life, not its hostage. My dears, the future always carries an element of uncertainty. But instead of paralyzing ourselves with fear, let's focus on what we can do today for our well-being and prepare for possible changes with dignity and wisdom. Live life to the fullest now, take care of yourselves, and greet each new day with an open heart. And so, we've explored these 9 invisible phrases that, like small pebbles in a shoe, can hinder us from walking through life easily and with pleasure. My dears, your life is a priceless book, each page filled with wisdom, experience, love, and triumphs. You deserve the kindest and most respectful treatment, first and foremost, from yourselves. Don't let fleeting negative thoughts or imposed stereotypes overshadow your present and future. You possess incredible strength, the strength to choose how to treat yourself, how to talk to yourself, how to live each day. Remember the heroes of our stories. Each of them took a small, yet so important step towards themselves, towards their inner harmony and self-respect. Remember, every new day is a chance to write another beautiful chapter in the book of your life. Start right today with one kind, supportive thought about yourself. You can do it. I sincerely believe in you. Your wisdom and life experience are your treasure, and you have every right to happiness and well-being at any age. Believe in yourselves, because you are worthy of it.